Well, hey everyone, Jen Amos here, and I am so excited to welcome you to the first official episode of Holding Down the Fort by US Vet Wealth in partnership with the Rosie Network. We are kicking off season 7 with our first interview from a cohort member from the Services2CEO program of the Rosie Network. So I'm going to look over here real quick because I have my notes and I'm not going to pretend like I have this memorized. So here's my question for all of you. Is it possible to turn your adversities into stepping stones to success? Well, I had the fortune of chatting it up with Keyani Washington and hearing about her inspiring journey as the CEO and founder of Chat Skin and Hair Company and the chapter lead with the Rosie Network. Keyani began her career in cosmetology in 2005 while also balancing a job at a daycare. She shares how she experienced setbacks, including health challenges that impeded her ability to continue hairdressing full-time and homelessness. Undeterred, she pivoted and developed her line of hair care products. In 2022, she joined the Rosie Network Service2CEO program, which was instrumental in launching her business. Keyani reflects on how she's embraced mantras like, put your freaking shoes on and walk, which is the name of her book, by the way, to confront difficulties head on and do it anyway, to work through fear and doubts. Keyani, it was an absolute pleasure having you as a guest on the show. And that being said, I want to share that this conversation you're about to listen to is an ad-free conversation thanks to my company, US Vet Wealth. And we'll be talking more about this in the outro, but if you haven't listened to the trailer episode of season 7 of Holding Down the Fort, highly recommend you listen to that now. That's episode 152. And if you don't know how to find it, just go to holdingdownthefortpodcast.com. Go in the search bar, put in 152, that's episode 152, and you will get access to the trailer. And in the trailer, we officially announced that this podcast now has an online podcast portal. So if you have thoroughly enjoyed these conversations and you're looking for behind the scenes content, bonus content, or you want to hear about my journey as a podcaster and why I am recording like this right now, I have a lot to say about this very setup, actually. I'll probably say that. I'll definitely say that for later. If you're watching via video, by the way, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you're listening on the podcast, check the show notes of this episode. We do have this available via video on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought. But yes, we have a podcast portal. It is free to our community thanks to our sponsor, US Vet Wealth. Our portal is housed under US Vet Wealth's free online resource, which is called Military Retirement Blueprint. We have a dedicated space there just for our podcast, just for you to get bonus content from our guests, from me, and additional stuff from US Vet Wealth, especially if you are a military retiree and you are faced with the question, should you keep or opt out of the survivor benefit plan? Or you're looking for alternative solutions to protecting your pension. So that being said, stick around to the outro music if you want to hear me chat a little bit more about how this show is going to play out. I'm really approaching the season, even with all the preparation. I still very much have a build as we go mentality, and I will cover more about that in the outro. So with that being said, please enjoy this conversation with Keyani. Keyani, thank you again so much for being on our show here at Holding Down the Fort, being the first person I interviewed. I hope I didn't butcher it. I hope you all like it. I hope you all get a ton of value out of it. And if you want to know how to contact her, check out the show notes of this episode. If you check out the podcast app you are using to listen to this, or check the description of this video if you're watching via video or watching via YouTube, or you can go to holdingdownthefortpodcast.com, do a search of episode 153, that's 153, and you can get all the details on how to contact Keyani. All right, with that said, please enjoy this conversation. Do you want to do more than follow orders, think outside of the box, and manifest your dreams? then you've come to the right show. Welcome to the award-winning podcast, Holding Down the Fort by U.S. Vet Wealth. I'm your host, Jen Amos, a Gold Star daughter, veteran spouse, and entrepreneur. For Season 7, I am ecstatic to be in partnership with the Rosie Network to highlight motivational stories of personal growth, financial awareness, and autonomy in our military community. Now, let's get started. All right, Keyani Washington, welcome to Season 7 of Holding Down the Fort podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too, considering what happened offline before we officially starting. So I thought we made it. So I want to thank you for tolerating 27 minutes of me being out of the office because of a fire alarm that went off. And luckily I walked out and it just finished raining. So it wasn't all that bad. I just had to wait a little. And I really want to thank you for your patience to really, candidly speaking, being the first guest from the Rosie Network that I have the fortune of interviewing for Season 7 of Holding Down the Fort. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. I'm excited. This is different, so I'm excited.
Oh, good. Okay. So I thought that we would warm up by doing an icebreaker question. So go ahead and pick like a number between 1 and 15. And then I'm going to pick
7.
a card. 7. I love how that just easily.
It's my favorite number.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So 1, 2, let's see. You'll see on the camera. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Here's a question for you. And it's okay to give yourself some flowers here. What compliment do you hear the most about you?
I have nice calf muscles.
Okay.
I always hear that all the time. Like, my friend is like, you got to accent those calf muscles. I'm like, okay, whatever. But yeah, that's the one that I hear all the time. I have nice calf muscles.
I love that. You know, part of my goal nowadays, because I'm in my mid-30s now, is to like have a good physique without wearing heels. Because I feel like heels accentuates calves and like, you know, your curves and all that. And I'm like, well, if I could be fit, I don't have to wear, heels. But I definitely used to rock a lot of heels back then. And, it would obviously accentuate like my curves. But in the long run, I paid for it because my knees started hurting, all the things started happening.
I'm like, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I quit a long time. Ironically, the reason why my calves are like this is because when I was little, I used to walk on my toes all the time.
Oh, interesting.
So I'd walk on my tippy toes all the time. Like, that's how I would walk. So I did that for a long time. I think even 12, 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like in my 20s, I could still do it. I try to do it now, but it's not as good. But
very interesting.
So I used to just walk on my toes all the time.
Like just cause, or like cause you're a ballerina?
I don't even know. Like, my mom and my great aunt just said, like, this kid just used to walk around on her toes. Like, she just, I don't know. They thought I was going to be a ballerina, but that didn't happen. But I don't know why. I just walked around on my toes.
Well, there you go. That is why you have amazing calves. I mean, it may not show up in your headshot in our promotional here, but just so you all know, the greatest compliment that Keyani gets is she has really nice calves.
Has really nice calves.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, awesome. I think that was a great icebreaker question. So thank you for indulging me on that. And that's the first time I've done one of those in a while. So I'm like, oh, cool. That was great how that turned out.
That was a good one. Yeah. And I like it.
Yeah. And now I'm excited to dive into your story, Keyani, and really learn about you. So for people that are listening to our show for the first time, especially Season 7 of Holding Down the Fort, well, first and foremost, if you've been following our show, this season is brand new. The way that we approach it, our mission, everything is completely brand new because we are so fortunate to have partnered up with the Rosie Network and feature their cohort members and their chapter leaders. And amongst those people is Keyani Washington. So she has, given us the honor to hear her story and, her journey as an entrepreneur. And I'm just excited to eat it all up.
Yes.
So let me go ahead and first start by asking you, I think as I flesh this out with you, like I always like to consider interviews like a team effort. I really want to start off with the story of like, how did you even become an entrepreneur? And we talked about this offline. And for you, I know that you didn't even know what the word was before you started becoming it. So tell us a little bit about that.
all I knew was when I got out of the military, there was just like this, I don't feel like dealing with the same crap anymore, like kind of mindset.
Yeah.
And I had learned how to braid when I was like 12 years old, but, you know, didn't think I could do it successfully. So I went into the military, but afterwards I did end up like working at a daycare, but still in my mind, I was like, I get tired of that whole, the threats that come behind working for somebody else. Like they're always like, you're going to get fired, or if you don't do this, or, you know, you see things that need to be changed and they don't want to change them. Like it helps. It's like, I hated that every single day. So I'm like, I'm good at this. I can take care of myself doing it. So I got my license and I started doing hair, but I did not learn the word entrepreneur until, and I got my cosmetology license in 2005. I didn't learn the word entrepreneur, like what it really meant, until 2018.
Love it. So considering how you've technically been in the space for, what is that, 13 years? What is your understanding of entrepreneurship today?
Woo, entrepreneurship. Lord. Okay. So it is the ability of a person to, it's like you have these thoughts about innovation. That's probably the best way I can think of it. Like you come up with so many different ideas, new things. I think entrepreneurship and business ownership are not in the same space, because you can be an entrepreneur and not really own, like particularly own, like normally when people own a business, it's like that one set business, that's all they do. But entrepreneurs continue to come up with new innovative ways to do things. And like I might open up a grocery store, and next week I might turn that grocery store and put a cafe in it, and then the next week I might say it needs elevators so people can go in here and exercise. And it's like we're always, our mind is always racing, and we can always come up with something new and fresh all the time, something innovative. And 9 times out of 10 is always to help someone else. Like that's what I found as an entrepreneur.
I love that. So it's like a constant creator, you know, a constant opportunity seeker. And I love how you ended it by saying, at the end of the day, the entrepreneur is always finding a way to serve someone. So I think that's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. And I do recall that initially when you really wanted to dive into this, I know from what I recall, you started working for a salon in 2011, and you decided to try to branch out. And your family and friends were worried about you. They were worried about this path you're taking. So in addition to kind of like you wanting to go against the system, like post-military, you know, you have a family that's kind of like, in a sense, not necessarily holding you back, but concerned about you.
Concerned. Yeah. I would say concerned. Like nobody around me, like nobody in my family was actually like not just working for someone else. So for me to say, I'm going to go work for someone else, and I don't have this benefit package of medical, dental, 401k and all this stuff, you know, because that's what people think about. They think about the thing that's going to sustain you through your life in their retirement. When, you know, as an entrepreneur, I can go buy insurance. Like just like you pay for insurance, I can go pay for insurance. I can get a 401k through a bank. I can do all of those things, and it just be on my own dime, like as the money that I made, versus like having to deal with a company and going through all that. And then, you know, when you leave that company, like you can lose all that. I'm still keeping mine because I'm paying for it. So their concern was more so for that. And like I said, nobody was an entrepreneur really. And then, you know, I didn't really know what the word was. So of course they didn't know what that meant. Yeah. So it was just like, are you really my mom kept saying, but you don't have the insurance. And I'm like, Mom, I'm pretty sure I can go to the VA. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
But you don't have dental. Okay, Mom, I'll just brush my teeth really good and floss and stuff, and I'll be fine. I'll be fine. But yeah.
You know, I can absolutely relate, because I also come from a family where the aspiration is to have a stable job in the middle class. You know, my family had come from a third world country, from the Philippines, and I come from a family of farmers. And part of why my dad joined the U.S. Navy, in my theory, is, you know, to give us more economic opportunities and all that stuff. And so really their aspiration was, what you typically hear, you know, go to school to get the good grades, get the good job, the good benefits, you know, to get the house, the car, the family, you know, on and on and on. And as great as those things are, I was very fortunate that the majority of my family had already achieved that. And I'm here thinking, well, you already did that. Let me see if I can do something different. And we really love how you're like, I can get my own insurance. I can do all that, because that's definitely something I had to figure out also. Like, I remember I was like, okay, well, for whatever reason, I was under this assumption that benefits were only available at a corporate job, or like, like for whatever reason, I thought that's the only place you can get it.
I know. It's the way the world is. It makes you think like that. Like, we can't get those things. Like,
exactly. And then I just remember I used to go to a lot of business networking events. And of course, the two main professions I feel like I always run into, maybe three that I run into at networking events, are like realtors, life insurance agents, and I think like financial advisors. And so I feel like I was able to get a lot of knowledge from them, and learning that I can get my own insurance, my own benefits, like you said, and also working with the tax preparer to help you like write off things that you're paying for, because that is a business write-off, for you to pay for like medical care, for example, or paying for continued education. Like, I could write off all the audiobooks that I bought, because that's continued education for me to be a better entrepreneur. But like, just knowing that there's a different way to do your taxes as a self-employed person. And of course, if you don't come from that background, if you don't have people in your family modeling it, then of course they're concerned, right?
Yeah, they were really concerned. Like, my mom was really concerned. But the crazy thing about it is, like, this will maybe last year or the year before last, I found out that my great, you have to do the numbers, great, my grandfather actually was an entrepreneur. Like, he owned 600 acres of land. He was a mortician.
Wow.
He also like put on these events all the time. And I'm like, y'all, it's been in my blood the entire time, and you've been trying to stop me from who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, well, there you go. Like, you're the descendant, and your great grandfather lives on in you. And I love that. I love how you're able to, in a sense, kind of balance out the family dynamic by, in a sense, like being reincarnated, like your grandfather kind of being reincarnated into you. Not that I'm into like reincarnation or anything, but you know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Awesome. I just love how you took that initiative, because one of the themes that I know the Rosie Network often talks about, and what our company talks about, is self-sufficiency. And I think part of self-sufficiency is just having that general curiosity of what else is there? What are other options? And I am kind of curious on your end, like, how did you even discover that you could get your own benefits?
Well, one, I did know that after I got out of the military that we could get health benefits. So I did sign up for health benefits through the VA. And, if you have disability ratings, as it goes up, then as your percentage goes up, then that determines like, if you have co-pays or like what they'll see you for. So because mine is like on the higher side, I pretty much can get seen for any and everything. So I just basically learned that I could go to the VA was the first thing for health. And then for dental, I learned through just looking on my app for USAA, because I bank with USAA, and I ended up saying like dental. I was like, what? I can get dental insurance through here. So it was like a cheaper rate. So I was like, these people worry about it, that I could do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So that was literally how I learned. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think it's just that desire to seek it out and to see what options are available, I think is quite admirable, because one thing I often find in our community is what you see is what you get. There's kind of this perception of like, all you have are your benefits, or all you have are the next orders to the next duty station. But the fact that you decided to think outside of the box and see what other options are available for you, even through a place you already do business in, which is your bank, I think that's great that you did that self-education, because I think sometimes, in a sense, and I say this respectfully, it's like safer, quote unquote, to just, go with what is already available to you, I think.
Right. Go with the flow.
Yeah, there you go. Go with the flow.
Yeah.
So I found your story really interesting, and I'd love for you to tell our listeners about this, where, you've had this long history of entrepreneurship before calling it entrepreneurship. And there's been a number of instances where I call it and then this happened, And so go ahead and, tell us all these and thens, starting with, starting with, let's say, going back to when you were working daycare still. until you were ready to do full-time as a professional braider, and then kind of like how your journey went on from there.
So I was working at the daycare. At this time, I'd had my cosmetology license since 2005. So I had been working at the daycare about that much time, and it was like 2011. And I loved the kids. I was actually part-time, but it really felt more like full-time. I think I was going from like 10 to 6. So it's like really felt like full-time. But after I would get off work, I would go do hair. So it's like I was still continuing to do what I've always done. I did it in the military too. Like I would still do it when I was in the Navy. But it came to a point where the daycare itself was like, okay, we either need you full time or we're going to have to let you go. And I was like, it was like, okay, I should have already jumped out there and done it been in the salon full time. But I still had a little bit of fear that I wouldn't be able to be successful or be able to take care of myself, like pay all of my bills and things like that nature. So I didn't jump out there. But once they gave me that, we need you to either go full time, or I was like, okay, I'm going to go full time. And I let it go. The teachers told the kids. And so they were like, Miss Keyani, no.
Aww.
So when they told them, I actually ended up staying until those kids graduated from daycare. And then I went full time into the salon. So that was like the first. And then, so I went into the salon full time in 2011. And I had been there up until about 2013, 14. And a knee injury I sustained in boot camp started bothering more. I had a surgery in 2007, I believe, but now it's starting to like get aggravated again. And so I kept saying my hip, but after going to like therapy and stuff, they were actually saying it was coming from my back.
Wow.
So you never know, that knee injury, it hit everything on that side of your body it could affect. So after that, I was like, okay, I think it's probably time for me to like come from behind the chair. But I didn't want to leave my like I love the industry. So I was like, okay, let me learn something else. Let me learn something else in this field so that I'm not actually standing on my feet. So I went to school for aesthetics, which is skin. I got that license and I chickened out, reverted back to what I always know, which is braiding, because it comes so natural to me. I reverted back to it, but again, like I'm still getting aggravated, like my knee is still getting aggravated.
Yeah.
And that pain, on the side, which felt like hip pain, which was back pain. So in school, I learned when you're in skin school, you learn a lot about skin, right? So I was like, I want to make a product. So I made the product myself. I developed it. I formulated. I did the whole thing, made a whole lot of products. And I started going out there and I branched off. I kind of dialed back a little bit from working in the salon, and I started to focus more on the product side. And so I would drive anywhere within a radius of, I think, like an hour and a half to any salon, barbershop, spa. I don't care if it was black, white, orange, green. I didn't care who it was. I just would go into the salon, introduce myself and say, hey, these are my products, blah, blah, blah. And I just did that for months, like in 2017. So from 2011, I went to the salon and then went to school in 2015. 2016, made the products. 2017, got out there and just hit the streets running and telling everybody about it. In 2018 was the end then, because I had gotten like a good momentum going. And I ended up becoming a homeless veteran in January 2018. And at the same time, I was actually going through some fertility stuff. I just had that appointment. And so it's like, oh my God. Like, I was like, pretty much I was just like, oh my God. That's all I can think is like, oh my God. So I spent my time from probably like February-ish to August, just kind of bouncing back and forth from like 4 houses. So there was, as far as being able to really jump into like that product side that I had like spent all that time trying to get the momentum going for it, I wasn't able to do it much. But I did have two barbers. I think I took two barbers. One of them at the time, he called me Key. He's like, Key. He said, I know you haven't stopped selling the products. He was like, I need some. And I was like, I can't get to it. Everything's in storage. He said, what do you need to do? I said, I just need to get them out. He was like, okay, tell me a time and I'll meet you over there. And he came over there and we like pulled everything out.
Wow.
Just so he could get this product. That's how much it meant. Like, that's how valuable the product was.
Yeah.
For this man to tell me he's going to leave work to come and help me get this out. So that was that. And then once I got back on my feet, and probably it was like August of 18, I ended up in the homeless veteran program, so HUD VASH program. And the coordinator asked me when I was trying to go to school, she was like, what was your holdup? And I was like, I didn't have a place to stay. So I ended up getting a place to stay. And this, like, in January is when I found out about an entrepreneur program. And I did it. It was in Philadelphia. It's through IBMF, and it's the EBV program. That's when I learned about entrepreneurship. That's the first time I ever pitched a business. That's like, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. I love these people. Where have they been all my life? So once I got a little taste of it, I was like, oh my God, like these are the only people I want to be around for the rest of my life.
I love it.
So
love it.
I started going to the University of Alabama. They had a program that was similar for students and staff. I got into that program, and again, I was doing good. They were showing me like, okay, this is what you do, this is how you do, this is how you get this together. So by 2019, I had gotten my LLC, and that was December, I think it was like December. It was April 2019. So all that time, I was like preparing because I had decided to do like a relaunch by this time of the products. I was like, they've helped me so much, I'm going to do a relaunch. So I decided to do a relaunch in February of 2020, did the relaunch. And then our best friend,
our good old friend
in the whole wide world, COVID said, and so it was like, so I was like, okay. So I spent just that time, of course, like all the people, I was just at home. Eventually, like the guys were like, hey, we need products. So we kind of figured it out so I could get them product. And I decided to go back to school again because I was like, maybe what could actually help me more is getting my cosmetology educator's license. The more I know, the more I've learned, like through experience, and now I can educate. I can provide an education sector in the same field. So this is definitely like continuing to pull me off of my feet. The whole goal is to stay in the industry, but off of my feet, because I wanted to be healthy enough when I had my own children. So I got my educator. I was going to school for educator. I was like getting ready to finish 2021. What was that? No, end of 2020. I was getting my education license. I was about to finish going into January. About 3 days before Christmas, I cut my thumb. And then
oof.
I cut it so bad to the tendon to where I had to have surgery. So that literally meant no more standing on my feet because I actually could not use my hands to do what I do. So
that was like the end. It's like if there's any doubt that you should move on, at least like move on from braiding, that was like it for you.
That was it. That was like, Keyani, like it's time. The crazy part about it is I had worked at Ulta as a skin therapist. I had worked for this company called Salon for Seniors, and we did hair and nails at nursing home, independent. I've done all of this stuff in between, like making the products and, and I'm still trying to go back and braid. Like, Keyani, come on, you have all. So it was like, when it's your comfort zone,
right? Like that, that was something. And that's something I wanted to ask you. Like when you had, like kind of going back a little bit, when you had that realization that, oh my gosh, I have a lower back problem. Like I can't stand on my feet for very long. I imagine that there was a grieving process for you. Like I'm sure this moment of you cutting your thumb was like the final moment, but
it was
like tell me about that grieving process, because I'm sure it wasn't easy because that was your natural talent and you enjoyed it. And then obviously throughout the years, you still kept going back to it like an ex-boyfriend you shouldn't go back to, right? It was like one of those things.
That is exactly what it is.
And so tell me about that. Tell me about kind of like that mindset and that process for you.
It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard because one, again, I really loved it. It was like the first thing I learned. It came so natural to me. And then a lot of times I would feel bad for my clients because they couldn't find other people to give them the service that I babied my clients. They were just baby-fied. So so it was like letting them go and like sending them out in the world with these people that would not give them the same experience, and making sure that they had healthy hair. Like with all of my education and experience, I was like, okay, even though they're getting braids as protective styles, they still need to have healthy hair and scalp underneath that. So they were appreciative. So for me, it was hard to let and I had actually ended up getting these two clients, and I loved them so much. So I had these two families that had adopted Black children. They were two Caucasian families that adopted Black children, and they didn't really know, like they did all that they could. And I just hated how people were abusing the fact that they would pay. So it's like I didn't want to sit. My heart for really helping people was more the fact that like really kept me staying behind the chair versus like being more conscious that my body needed me not to be behind the chair anymore.
Yeah.
So even through school, even while I was getting like my educator was, I was still trying to braid them like, girl.
This sounds like, I'm saying this jokingly, but it sounds like a codependent relationship, because it's like you even had your clients be dependent on you, right? It's like it was hard for them to find someone new, and they're like, Keyani, like, can you still do my hair, please? And so I mean, it obviously it was very important to you. You didn't just love braiding, but it sounds like you loved your clients. You loved taking care of them, and so it makes sense that it was a long and drawn out grieving process for you to, up until you cut your thumb.
Up until I cut my thumb.
Yeah.
When I cut my thumb, it was like, I couldn't even do my hair.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, I can't even, and I'm talking about the simple stuff, like I couldn't even really wash my hair.
Wow.
So I luckily, I'm not going to say it luckily, but it was a good thing, my hair was already braided when I cut my finger. So I didn't really have to worry about it as much, but they did have to come down, and I eventually had to, wash my hair. But yeah, it was hard. Even now, they still try to pull me in. Like today, they'll be like, oh my God, I just remember. Like if I post something, oh my God, those hands, I just remember. Yeah. And I'm just like, nope, just keep remembering, not pulling that in. But
it's not healthy anymore. You need to move on.
I need to move on. And my mom still does the same thing. She was like, but are you going to do my hair? Like that. Like, but are you going to do my hair?
She's like, okay, I know you're retired. However,
but are you going to do my hair? Like,
oh man.
I'm like, I don't even want to do my own hair. Jack me if I'm going to do my hair. But yeah, it was very hard. It was, and like I said, those last two families were really solidified. Like, okay, this is it. Like, I cannot do this anymore. It's literally time to. After I had cut my finger, and I ended up having two surgeries. The first surgery, we're not going to say it was the doctor, but it was the doctor. So it was.
I don't blame the doctor, but I blame the doctor.
It was, even though I cut my own finger as I was going through therapy, she was like, yeah, he should have, like, I was learning all of the things that he was supposed to do in my post-care that he wasn't doing that would have helped me heal faster. So she was like, yeah, I've done all I can do. I'm sorry, you're going to have to have another surgery. I was like, oh my God. So this is from like January to June.
Wow.
And so after I had that second surgery, I was like, okay. It was like, afterwards I had done my hair, and I did like this whole video just to say like, and I don't know if you can see it, there's still a scar there. Can you see it?
Is it like on the lower part of your thumb? Oh, I see it. Yeah. Is it kind of this way, right?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's like right up in there.
Oh yeah.
So
if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, go on YouTube right now and look at Keyani's thumb.
Yeah. So I had done my hair. It took me a while, but I had done it. So again, one of those little clients that I just had this, And like the family, it was the family. Like I love that I would go to their house. Like it was a whole thing. I would be there. The dad was just like, it was just an experience, like being with them and, you know, and like the kids, it wasn't just the little girl that I was doing here. It was like the mom, the dad, the other kids, like everybody's like, we're all having conversations about her hair and this, like all things. So I tried to do her hair and I did. And I said, no, this is it.
Wow.
The speed that I had, it was gone. And I was like, I can't.
Wow.
I can't do it anymore. So I completely left it alone. That was, I don't even remember exact. I know it was like 2021, I think. Wow. And I completely left it alone. It was hard. I didn't want to leave it. They were like, well, if you decide, we'll come to you. Because by then I had moved and everything. They were like, we will drive that hour to you. And I was like, nope, I think that's it.
No.
Yeah. So now it's like, okay, now you can focus on your products. You can focus on, you know, doing the education side. I had gotten married and I was prepared, like, okay, now I can go ahead and like found out I was pregnant. And then
lovely. Hashtag and then y'all. I'm sure
that should be my story. Hashtag and then.
I know, seriously. I feel like that's going to be in the title of this episode somehow.
It has to be, because that's just like my whole story. It's like, and then.
Yeah.
But then happened was, and then. So yeah, so once I found out I was pregnant, I was still trying to make the products, but like we had already like tried to move everything into like the garage. That was going to be my whole workshop area. But you know, being pregnant, I can't move all this stuff that I need to move around,
right,
and do all of this extra stuff. So I did what I could. I'm still with those same two bars. They stuck with me. I will tell you, they have stuck with me even through all the crazy. They have stuck with me. So I did like try to fulfill their orders, but as far as like really trying to get like the products out there as much as I could, it was just hard because, you know, you're pregnant, you don't know if you're gonna fall asleep while you sitting on the couch or while you walking, you know.
Yeah.
You just fall asleep. You know? So once I had him, the Rosie Network, like I don't even know where I saw it. I can't even remember. But I saw it and I went ahead and filled out on the application and I got into the program. And once I got into the program, I think it was just my time. I would say maybe it just might have been my time, because I think for when I hear like some people give their reviews or when they like, it's a little different from me, is because I was already ready. Like I wasn't like trying to prepare or figure it out. Like I was already ready. So everything that they were saying, like as we were going through the program, I was trying it. Like they were like, find mentors. So instead of just using the resources, like I got on LinkedIn and started typing out people's names in my industry and in my post and saying, hey, I need a meeting with you.
Yeah.
And I got one, and I ended up getting one of my mentors is one of the top on the education side, one of the top industry leaders in my field. So, you know, I was taking what they were saying and like rolling with it at the same time. Like I was trying at the same time having my little infant with me. He did the whole program with me right there. We did
your
the whole thing
partner.
together. Yeah, my business partner. Even now, if I have somewhere to go, he's like right there. I go deliver product, he's right there.
Love it.
I did a workshop, he was right there. So it's been all those endings, but I feel like right now, like after the Rosie Network, I would say like the things just started like rolling in place, like the where they needed to be, where they should be, different opportunities, meeting, I think his name is Bill Barnett, and getting a video done and learning through him about the guy that does the website, which actually he does the Rosie Network's website too. So just all of those things are like now like pushing me to go forward. And my old professor, I have an associates in broadcast communication. Yeah, that's one of those endings. But the professor at that time that I took a graphics class for, she actually did my new graphic for my logo and my label. And I was asking her, I was like, okay, what's my fee? Because I was prepared. Like at this point, going through the Rosie Net, I was like, that's in a row. I was prepared. I had money set aside. Like this is where she was like, it's going to be on the family discount. So nothing. I was like, oh.
Wow.
You know, logos
Yeah.
Yeah. And then labels for the products. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They start reaching up
They're
there.
not
So yeah, I just felt like all of those endings, all of those lessons learned, all of that growth, and then being able to get into the Rosie program because I was so mentally prepared, even though I had my son at the time. I just think it's just time. It's just time. Like, it's just like, I think it was that final, like, okay, God, like, oh, you finally let go of that chair, huh? Okay, now we can grow with it. It's always like you've been holding your own self up trying to stand behind the chair.
Yeah. Wow. That is deep.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like I need to take a moment. And it's crazy because, I mean, first and foremost, like what I really admire is your grit. You know, you stayed in the game. And even though you couldn't, braid anymore, you stayed in the industry and you found ways to adapt and evolve. And, throughout that, you were still able to get loyal clients, especially the barbers, that are still asking for wholesale, prices on your products. It's, I think it's just absolutely amazing and a testament to your, I guess, desire to be in this kind of lifestyle and more importantly, to serve people the way you want to serve them, with the products, with the way I'm sure that you're educating about this industry. It's very admirable.
Thank you. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, all right. So Keyani, I just really enjoyed listening to your story. And I think the last 30 minutes we've been, talking here. And I feel like there's so much to take away from your story, whether it's for entrepreneurs or military connected entrepreneurs and just our military community as a whole. And I think like the first thing that comes to mind for me is, so I already said the positive attitude or the grit and a community of support. Okay. Yeah. So let me rephrase this differently. So Keyani, at this stage of your life, as we start to wrap up here and you're looking back, what are some main takeaways you would like to share to our listeners? And this could be listeners who are military connected entrepreneurs or, people in our military community. What would you like to share with them about your story?
I think one of the biggest things that I learned myself when I was actually like a homeless veteran and when I had to go out and sell the products, because it was easy to sell myself as a braider because they're seeing my work on somebody else's head. But to know that these products are going to work, even though I've been in the industry this long, is a different thing. And one of the biggest things that I learned was do it anyway. So every time that fear would come up, like, but what if they ask you this question? Or what if you don't say the right things? Or what if they look at you crazy? Or what if it was always like those things in your mind that you just, play to downplay your own self, really?
Yeah.
I had to, every time I would drive up to a salon or a barbershop or a spa, and I'd be like, I'm gonna just keep going. And then I would just say, do it anyway. So my steps were, get out the car. Get out the car and get this bag out the car and just take the steps and walk in there. And that was something I learned when I was going through my, like I said, as a homeless veteran. I think I had an anxiety attack. I'm not sure. It wasn't like diagnosed, but I was sitting in a chair and I had just come from school and I was actually at my entrepreneur class that evening and I couldn't move. And literally I couldn't move. And I was like, oh my God, I can't move. And I never felt the weight. It was so much weight on my body and I could not move my body. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot move. And I was just sitting here I got to be in class in 20 minutes and I could not move my body. And the only thing I could think of was just put on my shoes.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, just put these shoes on. And I was like, something about putting those shoes on was like, okay, just start walking. And so I just walked down my stairs. I got in my car and it was like, just keep going. I just kept them, just keep going. It was, I think it was the weight of all of the things. Cause by this time, I think it was 28, end of 2018, early 2019. So I think it was just all of that weight.
Yeah.
Sat on my body. at that particular day. And I think like a week before that, somebody had hit my car.
Oh my goodness.
And it was like so much stuff. And I was just like, ugh.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't move that day. And the only thing I could think of was like, oh yeah. And then I forgot, like my dad had a stroke also.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And then I had to fly out to California, and I had to decide, regardless of what my family wanted, I had to make a decision. And I made a decision to put them in a nursing home. And it was like, ugh, it was rough because I had to leave them. And, you know, you have that, they're kind of happy you're needed, but they're kind of not. Like, it was like all of that, plus all the stuff that I had going through, the fertility, I had surgery, all while I'm a homeless veteran now. So you can imagine I'm recovering at people's houses, like all this stuff is going on.
Yeah.
So I think all of that just said, and it just sat on my body. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, you know what? Just put on your shoes. That's all you can do. That's the most you can do is put these shoes on. And then just putting on the shoes gave me enough to like stand up and walk. And I actually ended up writing a book called, it's an interactive motivational notebook called Put On Your Freaking Shoes and Walk.
Love it.
It's like, what else do you have left? Once you put your shoes on, you have to do something. Like it's like you can't just sit there with shoes on, and you got to do something. You got to put your feet down. Once you put them on, you got to put them feet down. So you might as well stand up.
Yeah.
So those were the biggest two things. Like, just put those shoes on, and just keep it going forward. And then when that fear just pops up in you, just do it anyway. It just kind of, a lot of times you really you get that like, I really can't do this anymore feeling. Like it comes to that point, like I'm exhausted, I really can't do this. But on the other side of that, for entrepreneurs, there's like this deep-rooted seated passion that just won't allow you to not do it, something.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't even know what it is, but you just start writing down the things that come out of your brain, and then eventually something evolves. But like I said, my biggest two takeaways was put them dang on shoes on your feet and get up and do it anyway, because eventually, you know, through all the heartache, through all the pain, through all the whatever, because a lot of people will say, well, focus. You know, if you keep that focus, that dang focus goes out the door.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that thing says, shoot, I left. I'm not here for it. It flies out. So it's one of those things where you have to take the little things, because focus is something that you have to mentally try to do. But you can take your hands and put your shoes on and put your feet down and stand up.
Yeah.
And you can just do something anyway. Like, even if you don't want to do it, you can just do it anyway. So, but trying to make yourself focus, that takes more time. It takes more time to me to just put my shoes on. So
yeah, I think in those moments, focusing seems too far of a stretch, or seems too big of a picture. And when you just dial it down and you just say, you know what, you could just put on your shoes. You got your shoes on, you might as well get up, you might as well walk, you might as well do something. And I definitely relate in regards to like when you feel like maybe you're at your lowest point, or you feel like there's nowhere to go. What you do have is movement. I remember one of the mantras I used to say to myself is, you know, I can just take life moment by moment. I don't have to think about next year. I don't have to think about next month. I don't have to think about next week. I don't have to think about tomorrow. I could just think, I don't even have to think about tonight. I could just think about this moment. And sometimes that's more than enough. And I've come to learn that, like, you know, your purpose could be found in your present. And sometimes that purpose is to just move and trust that it's going to get you somewhere. So I just really appreciate hearing that story, because I think that any other person, any other veteran for that matter, any homeless veteran, and, you know, as we know, veteran suicide is very common, unfortunately, in our community. And the fact that you had all the and thens, let's just make a list. I feel like I'm going to have like an infographic of all the and thens. I'm like visualizing it already. But anyway, I feel like you could have had any reason to just fold and say, that's it. Like, that's it.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
And so you had that fire in you. And I know that in regards to like the military community and even in the veteran community, it could be easy to just do that. So it's my hope that when people hear your story and know that you did what you did, the do it anyway philosophy and put your freaking shoes on, right? Yeah. I hope that our listeners will really be moved by that, and knowing that here you are, you made it on the other side. You still have a very lively, vibrant, personality, and you still have your clients, and you're married, you have a son. And I'm not saying that you reached the destination, but to see your journey from, let's say going all the way back to 2005 till now, it's what an incredible story. I mean, do you recognize that your story is kind of awesome?
To be honest, no. A lot of times I don't, and then I had to remind myself, one of the things that I was actually president of the Alabama Women in Business, and I didn't really think anything of it. But I had to, I think it was I did a coaching call, and the lady was like, I need you to find some people to write things about you, just kind of write some things about you. And I was like, okay, that should be pretty simple. So the lady that actually sponsored me to be in the organization itself, she wrote this whole thing, and she was like, yeah, and you took it on when it was about to be dissolved, and you turned it around. And I was like, oh wait, I did do that. I had I think I get tunnel vision, and my tunnel vision just says make it work.
Love it.
Do what it takes to make it work. Solve the problem. There's a problem that needs to be solved, figure it out and solve it. And I don't take the time to just really think about, oh, you've done this magnificent thing, because I'm people need assistance, people need help, something needs to be fixed, there's a problem, there needs to be an answer, there needs to be a solution. So that I just go for that. And so the story of how I get there never really dawns on me until somebody says, you remember that you, and I'm like, for what? I did do that. I'm like, you're right, I did. So I do hope that my story does help someone, in the military community. Like I said, so many people there, suicide is high in our community, and I would just want them to know that whatever that situation is at the present time, it's not forever. It's just for a season or for a moment. It could just be for those 5 minutes that you sitting right there, and then in the next 10 minutes it can be something different. So just whether it be entrepreneurship that you choose or whatever it may be, just know that particular hard situation that it is right at the moment, me laying on the bed, doing the fertility stuff, and then learning that I do not have good flow in my tube. So if you don't have good flow, you cannot have children. So I could have been like, you know what? But my mindset was, you know what? Let me get my body healthy. So just know that there's always something, the bad news has a solution. Yeah. Problems have solutions. So just, take that as problems are supposed to be solved. That's in math, right?
Absolutely.
There's supposed to be a solution. And I think that's life. Stuff comes up and there's supposed to be a solution to it. So
yeah, I love it. I feel like you just dropped so many life lessons there that our community can take away. And I think it's about listening to your inner voice in those darkest moments, and or saying to yourself hey, do it anyway, make it work, put your freaking shoes on, et cetera, et cetera.
Put them dang shoes on.
You tell them, Keyani.
It made me think of my granddaddy. Gal, get in here.
I love it so much. Well, Keyani, I just want to make sure that you were able to share everything that you wanted to share to our listeners. So are there any final takeaways that you want to share? Any other final closing thoughts? Or did I squeeze everything out of you?
I think it squeezed everything out of me, but I would say congratulations on all of your future endeavors, because you will get there no matter what it looks like right now. I'm going to congratulate you ahead of time. I applaud you. You made it. You did it.
Yes.
You put those daggum shoes on your feet, and you did it anyway. So if nothing else, just hear me saying that in your head. Put them daggum shoes on your doggone feet and get up and get out there and do it anyway. Let that ring in your head. But like I said, congratulations to all of you on all of your endeavors. I know you're going to do great.
Oh, I love that pep talk. Well, thanks, Keyani. We very much appreciate your time. And I want to thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. And as a last bonus question, because very often as a podcast host, I make it my sense of responsibility to make it about, the guests that I'm interviewing. But I like to nowadays for this new season, I want to turn the table around and see if you have any, one question for me. We're not going to start a whole other interview here, but do you have one question you like to ask me before we wrap up?
My question to you would be, you guys were doing something totally different.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? I think we should do this.
Yeah.
Type of, what was that moment? You know what? We should do this now.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. So, I often say on the show that I started the show out of curiosity and market research, having been removed from the military community for 20 years and then meeting my husband and getting, serving our military community today. I felt in a weird way, I had this sense of imposter syndrome. I was like, who am I to help veterans and career military families, military retirees, et cetera, and more importantly, our seasoned spouses. And so it was important for me to be you know what, let me just lead with curiosity. And that's kind of how this show was birthed. And throughout the 6 seasons, the first 6 seasons of the show, I was very open to kind of anyone who wanted to be on the show. I had a broad goal of just sharing resources and tools from, guests who want to be on the show. And then, fast forward to fall of 2022, when we wrapped up the last season, I definitely did some deep reflection. And I realized that in order for the show to survive, or in order for it to go on, because kind of like you, it was kind of like for me where it's okay, it's I don't want to end the show. I still want it to go on, but it's going to have to change the way it goes on. And with every season, I feel like I get a different fuel of inspiration. And so I really took a year, essentially. By the time this episode is published, it'll be a year since the last season came on. And I really had to look inward. And more importantly, I had to talk to my husband again because we worked together. And I was all okay, for this next season of my life, I have to do something that feels purposeful for me. And I was thinking about your story when you were working in, I think, the acceleration program. And how you're oh my gosh, entrepreneurs, these are the only people I want to be around now. And and so for me, that's basically how I felt. I thought, okay, I feel like I've interviewed a diverse group in our community, but now I realize I'm in a place where I just want to talk to more entrepreneurs in the community. I want to know, because, for me, part of my background is having been a military child and not being able to hold down a stable job in my young adult years. I was fired from 4 jobs in my young adult years. Yeah, I know. I wear it like a badge. And and I just remember, I remember by my 4th job, my best friend was Jen, I don't think you're meant for a job. So I got into sales and I did all these things. And 12 years later, here I am. And there's a phrase that goes, your associations are everything. And actually, a couple of phrases come to mind. Your associations are everything. You are who you surround yourself with. And another one is, if you buy into people's opinions, you buy into their lifestyle. And all of that to say, there goes another one for you. Add it to your list of mantras there. And so essentially, I just came to a place where I was okay, if I'm going to continue this journey of being an entrepreneur, I need to be around other entrepreneurs. And luckily, I in a weird way, I kind of forgot that my husband, Scott, was part of the Rosie Network's cohort way back when, I think back in 2016, 2017.
Okay.
And so we just decided to reach out to them, and here we are. Here we are. We just realized it would have been the perfect partnership, because while their mission is all about self-sufficiency and financial stability, ours is the same with our company. The vehicles are different. For them, it's entrepreneurship. For us, it's through financial solutions in the private market. And so we wanted to find a way to marry the two and obviously support each other, and also give back to the Rosie Network, because they've given so much to us. And so this is basically a manifestation of that. And it just feels like we've come full circle. It kind of feels like a homecoming, to be able to work with the Rosie Network again. So thank you for being a part of this, a part of the partnership. And I hope that answers your question.
It does. And I'm that homecoming. That was
Cool. Well, Keyani, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. I want to thank you so much for your time and hearing your story. And I know our listeners are going to get a lot of value out of this. In the post credits, I'll definitely let people know how they can get a hold of you. To our listeners, you can check out the show notes of this episode. And with that said, I don't have a closing slogan yet, so I'm probably going to add that later. So with that said, to our listeners, thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll chat with you in the next episode. Tune in next time. Hey, this is your host, Jen Amos. Thanks again for listening to today's episode of Holding Down the Fort by U.S. Vet Wealth. Visit holdingdownthefortpodcast.com to access the full show notes of this episode, including resources mentioned and bonus content. Once again, that's holdingdownthefortpodcast.com. Lastly, stay after this outro music for something a little extra. Thanks again and chat soon. Bye for now. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for listening to Keyani's episode. And most importantly, thanks for hanging out in the post commentary. So one thing that is going to be super special and unique and different about season 7 of Holding Down the Fort by U.S. Vet Wealth is that we have a free podcast portal in which, if you're looking for behind the scenes content or bonus content, or you just want more of this podcast, you can go to the show notes of this episode, check out the description. I don't have an official web domain for this just yet, and I kind of like it that way because I think the only people who would join the portal are those who really want to get access to this stuff. And so if you check out the show notes of this episode, or once again, check out our website, holdingdownthefortpodcast.com, you will find a link that will give you direct access to our podcast portal, which is free for everyone listening to the show. And there you'll be getting all the things that I mentioned, a ton of bonus content, a ton of extra educational resources, especially for people who aspire to do more than following orders, think outside of the box, and manifest your dreams. So that's really what all of this is for. And what I have found in my journey, having been self-employed for about 13 years now and having been a podcaster for 4 years now, is that it really takes a village to do this work, and more importantly, to make it sustainable. And it's because of all the free content and free resources and free advice and mentorship that I got from so many people throughout the years. And this is my way of, paying it forward, paying it back. Part of why we have decided to partner up with the Rosie Network for the show, because my husband was one of the original cohort members of the Service2CEO program when it was called something else, by the way. It had a different name before it was called Service2CEO. And so years have come by, and it's just been a beautiful full circle moment for us to, come back and give back in this capacity by featuring the incredible stories of the cohort members, people who have been connected with the Rosie Network and have seen, positive impact in their lives because of what the Rosie Network has done. And so, this is just my way of paying it forward and continuing to give a ton of free advice and free resources and education in hopes that it'll help you. It'll help you as a military retiree, as a veteran, as a seasoned spouse, as a veteran spouse, however you're connected with the military. I hope that you get a ton of value in this bonus content. So once again, highly recommend that you check out the show notes of this episode or visit holdingdownthefortpodcast.com to join this portal. And again, it's a free membership. So I will give you a hint now. This was actually a pretty good episode, and I'll explain that later. I will explain that more later. But in the upcoming episodes, I'm going to share a little bit more about the process of having done this podcast, because this particular season had the most direction while also being given a ton of curveballs my way. And I will say it's definitely made me a better podcaster, a more humbled podcaster. And I'm excited to share all of that with you in our podcast portal. So, and last but not least, if you are someone that wants to engage with the guest of the show or even engage with me, that's what this portal is for. Would love to have you on there. And that's it for now, y'all. So thanks for sticking it out. And I hope that you enjoyed the whole conversation with Keyani ad-free, thanks to our sponsor, U.S. Vet Wealth. And with that said, I will chat with you in the next episode. Tune in next time.